Now we Veil of Summer their Flusterstorm, which will stop Flusterstorm from countering Veil of Summer, which will allow us to make Force of Will fizzle, which will allow us to Thoughtseize our opponent and rip Consign to Memory. And then with 17 Storm and 6 Black and Tendrils of Agony in hand, we can easily Tendrils our opponents. Good afternoon, combo fans, and welcome to the Eternal Chaos YouTube channel, where we focus on the most degenerate and broken card interactions from Magic the Gathering history. So today we're going to be playing some Legacy Storm, and this is actually a replay that I played from earlier today, where we're playing against none other than Show and Tell. And Show and Tell has been quite a bit more popular lately since the banning of Grief, and we love to see it. Show and Tell is a classic mainstay deck from Legacy, but it was kind of hurt when Grief was around and Grief was discarding all of their main combo pieces. So here we get to see Show and Tell playing at its strongest, and it's a really fun matchup where Show and Tell has us, the combo player, on our back foot from the very beginning of the game, and it's fun to see some of the interactions which are very unique to this matchup. So let's see how it goes. So here we draw our hand. It's a pretty interesting hand. We have, as you can see here, triple artifacts, which is good. That can turn on our Mox Opal. We also have a land, a Veil of Summer. One of these Veil of Summers can get imprinted on Chromox, and the other Veil of Summer can make it to where we're protected. And then from there, we can go ahead and maybe go for a Echo of Aeons line, or we can even go for Galvanic Relay. Let's see what we do here. It really just depends. At this point, we looked our opponent up. We know they're playing Show and Tell. They go ahead and Force of Will our Veil of Summer by pitching Cunning Wish. So if we didn't know that they were on Show and Tell before, we definitely know now. Cunning Wish is a pretty obvious indicator of that. And then at this point, we decide not to go for it. Here we could go all in and go get our Echo of Aeons and then draw 7 new cards. But that would be a little awkward. We would be giving our opponent an additional 7 cards as well. Or the other option is we go ahead and pass the turn, and then we actually have enough mana to go for the win. And I was looking at my opponent's deck list, and the only interaction they actually play is Force of Will. So it's like, okay, they already used one of their Force of Wills. If they can't find one of the other 3 in the next turn, which is unlikely, then we can just win the game on the following turn. We know our opponent generally isn't fast enough to be able to win on their turn, so why don't we just pass one turn and try to win? Another option here could have been to just go for Galvanic Relay, and that would have been a totally fine option as well. So let's see what our opponent does. They go Island. Pretty normal. Nothing too crazy. Here we're going to Surveil. Look at the top card of our deck. We have a land, so that's good. That's another piece of mana. Now, if our opponent has, say, Daze, we can still win through a Daze because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. So that's enough to play Burning Wish and Beseech the Mirror and have 1 mana for a Daze. So if our opponent has Force of Will, well, they had Force of Will previously, and now they have Daze, we can beat that. The only thing that stops us here is a second Force of Will, which the likelihood of your opponent opening up with double Force of Will is less than 10%. So let's see what happens here. We fired 1 bullet. We fire another bullet. Does it get through? We go Beseech the Mirror for another Beseech the Mirror and put Gaia's Will on the stack. And bam, our opponent has the second Force of Will. That's like our opponent rolling a 10-sided die and calling the number. So our opponent's feeling very lucky today with double Force of Will. So at this point, we need a couple of runners. We need like Lion's Eye Diamond plus an Echo of Aeons. Hey, we just pitched an Echo of Aeons to our graveyard. So at this point, we just need to find enough mana. Unfortunately, we don't have... If we tap this land for black, we don't have the blue to play Echo of Aeons from the grave. So here we're trying to find the mana for our blue. So here's a Brainstorm that can help us. And there we go. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to play out Echo of Aeons quite yet. You can see here, if we use this blue to play our Brainstorm, we actually don't have access to blue anymore for Echo of Aeons. So we're going to have to wait one more turn. Our opponent has 3 cards in hand. Here they go, Brainstorm. And now we're going to try again. We fired 2 bullets. Here's our 3rd bullet. Can our opponent parry our 3rd combo? They've had the answer 2 times in a row. Here they go, Cunning Wish. What do they have? And here they have Thwarts, which this card I haven't seen in a long time. You may return 3 islands you control to their owner's hand. You can see here our opponent had 4 lands before. Now they only have the 1. Rather than pay this mana, this spell's mana cost counter target spell. So it's basically a crappier Force of Will that forces them to bounce 3 cards to hand. And so they've not only countered our first combo line, our first Beseech the Mirror, then they countered Gaia's Will. Now they countered Echo of Aeon. So it's kind of incredible. We locked and loaded. We came loaded to the teeth with multiple bullets, and our opponent was able to miraculously parry every single blow that we aimed at them. So very, very impressive. I think even a control deck, the average control deck would have lost to this much pressure, but miraculously our show and tell opponent here was able to stop all 3 combos from us. Kind of amazing. Slightly depressing. And at this point, our opponent goes for Intuition on our end phase. They're going to be adding Show and Tell. They show us 3 Show and Tells. We have to pick one. Surprise, surprise. They end up with one of their Show and Tells in hand. And here they're going to slap a Omniscience in play. So you may cast spells from your hand without paying their mana cost. So everything they have is now free to play. Surprisingly, they can't win here. If we get another turn, another Beseech the Mirror, then we can win. Our opponent attacks us. We're at 11. Our opponent attacks us. We're down to 4. Can we top deck the Beseech the Mirror? And we cannot. And so the first game goes to Show and Tell. Very, very impressive from them. We tried valiantly 3 times the combo, and our opponent had the answer every single time. So let's go ahead and take a look at game 2 and see how that one went. Okay. So here you can see we have a lot of fast mana, which is great. The only downside of this hand is we don't have any protection here. And these Lion's Eye Diamonds aren't the best with Song of Creation. So here we have 1, 2, 3 mana for Song of Creation. We need 1 more. And we're on the play, so we don't really have a first turn. We could go for a Burning Wish play, but if our opponent has a Force of Will or a Force of Negation, we just lose on the spot, and we would have to go all in, cracking our Lion's Eye Diamonds. So that would be a really net negative play. Our opponent's going to have the answer more often than not. So what we decide to do here is actually keep this hand. We're going to play it a little bit slower. We can use Burning Wish to go get our sideboard copy of Thoughtseize, and then Thoughtseize our opponent, and then play Song of Creation a little bit later. And you might say to yourselves, well, that sounds super fucking slow. And you know what? You'd be right. That is a pretty slow plan, but we have a sneaky idea. And you'll see what that idea is here in a little bit. So this is slow, but if our opponent is able to combo before us, we have a backup plan. So here we play out our mana, just in case we get hit by, you know, not Vexing Bobble, but something like that. So we surveil the top, we get the mana we need for Song of Creation, and then here we grab Echo of Aeons. And the idea is that on our next turn, if we get any card that's imprintable to Chromox or any land, which is literally every card in our deck except for Chromox or Lion's Eye Diamond. So like a Lotus Petal would work, any card to imprint the Chromox would work, any land would work, and that would give us the 4 mana we need to play Song of Creation, and then we have multiple 0 drops start drawing through our deck with Song of Creation. If our opponent counters Song of Creation, we can just crack Lion's Eye Diamond and then Echo of Aeons. So that gives us basically 2 rounds to try to shoot through our opponent's defenses, which is pretty decent. So that's the plan. Let's see how it goes. Our opponent plays a land for turn and then passes it over. Let's see. We just have to draw anything besides Chromox. So that's the one card we didn't want to draw is Chromox because we don't want to imprint Echo of Aeons. Otherwise, we don't have a backup plan. Our opponent almost assuredly has a counter spell. So here we just have to pass the turn. You know, we can draw any card in our 50-card deck besides Chromox and Lion's Eye Diamond, and that will allow us to have a double play. Unfortunately, we drew a Chromox. So our opponent is manipulating the top of their deck, trying to find their combo. Let's see if we can find what we need. And we draw another Chromox. What are the odds of that? So here we just have to pass the turn over again. You can see here, it was kind of what our opponent brainstorms at the end of our turn and then fetches. So now they've impulsed and double brainstormed. At this point, they're almost sure to be able to combo. And you can see things haven't exactly went to plan like we had hoped. But remember, we have a backup plan that we were talking about. Let's see if that comes to fruition here. Our opponent plays Show and Tell, and now you see the idea. Each player may put an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land card from their hand onto the battlefield. So this is the main combo piece for Show and Tell. That's the name of the deck. So they're going to put something like Emrakul in play, and that's great. They can completely destroy us, usually on the next turn, unless they're able to go Omniscience and play their entire deck. And if that's the case, then I can put Song of Creation in play. They can't counter it because they're the one that allowed me to just stick it in play. I don't have to use the stack. And then on my turn, I can just go full combo. And it's very difficult for my opponent to stop me at that point. So that was the idea. If you're playing Storm and you have Song of Creation in hand, it makes the hand a lot easier to keep versus Show and Tell, because even if everything goes terribly wrong, a lot of the times you can win the game on the back of Song of Creation because your opponent's going to allow you to cheat your own Song of Creation into play. So let's see how it goes. If our opponent can kill us here, then we lose. Right now, we're already down game 1, and our opponent, our hand is kind of crap. We have triple Chromox at this point. But if our opponent can't kill us here, we're going to draw a lot of cards on the next turn. So just incredible. Our opponent just went Omniscience, Lorien revealed to draw 3 cards, another Omniscience. Remember, Omniscience makes it to where all their spells are free. And then they went into another Lorien reveal to draw another 3 cards. They drew 6 cards. Now they play Null Rod. Activated abilities of artifacts can't be activated. That means all of these cards, I can play them, but they do literally nothing for me. So at the moment, I have access to no more than 2 mana. But let's see, you would think if your opponent can play any cards from their hand for free in a deck like this, they should be able to win the game. So we should just be lost here. Like, the odds of us getting another turn are so minuscule in this spot. It's crazy. And our opponent is passing the turn. So what can we do? We draw land for turn. So let's recap. Our opponent played 2 Lorien Reveals. They drew 6 cards. Every card that they play from their hand is completely free. They did not win the game on their turn, even though all their cards are completely free. What does that say? That says that their hand is full of counter spells right now. Cards like Force of Will, Flusterstorm come to mind. And all those cards they can play for completely free. They don't even have to pitch a card for Force of Will. And on top of that, they have Null Rod, meaning all these cards do absolutely nothing. And our Boseijus, which is what we use to generally answer Null Rod, are in the sideboard. We have no way of accessing them. This is a very uncommon card to see from Show and Tell. So definitely an interesting choice from them. So right now, we have Song of Creation in play, which of course says whenever you cast a spell, draw 2 cards. So we can start drawing a whole bunch of cards, but we literally only have access to 2 mana. So we're seriously bottlenecked. If we get to a point where we can't, we don't have 0 drops anymore, we only have 2 mana. The benefit of Song of Creation, though, is that you can play an additional land on each of your turns. So here's 1 land here, and we can play another land for turn. So that means we can get 2 more lands. We have a total of 2 untapped lands in our deck. We have Volcanic Island and Bayou. So basically what we want to do is get Volcanic Island and Bayou in play. That way we have all 4 mana. And then we want to get to where we have 2 Veil of Summers in hand by playing these 0 drops and drawing our whole deck. And then once we have 2 Veil of Summers in hand and we have multiple Dark Rituals in hand, we can cast a Dark Ritual off this Underground Sea. And if our opponent tries to fight over the Dark Ritual, that way, the idea is that they want to choke us on mana because we only have 4 mana. Then we can Veil of Summer to stop them from countering it. And if they counter it again, then we have another Veil of Summer. So that's the plan. Play out all our 0 drops, get 4 lands in play, get double Veil of Summer, and get to some Dark Rituals, and then take it from there. Let's see what we can do. So we draw Opal plus Dark Ritual. We draw Tendrils and Bloodstain Mire. So we're drawing through our entire deck here. You can see that. And now we have Tendrils of Agony in hand. So if we can get our Storm a bit higher, which will be very easy, we can just point Tendrils of Agony at our opponent and win the game. The problem is you have to be aware of a card called Consigned to Memory, which can counter the Storm trigger. And I would very much put my opponent on having a Consigned to Memory in hand. They literally have 6 cards in hand and weren't able to win the game even though all their spells are completely free. They have a hand chock full of counters. So what that means to me is that Tendrils of Agony isn't enough. What we need to do is get to one of the 3 Thoughtseizes that we cited in. So first we need to do plan A, which we talked about before, which is 4 lands, double Veil of Summer plus Dark Ritual, or 2 Dark Rituals. And then step 2 is to Thoughtseize our opponent and rip Consigned to Memory out of their hand. That way they can't stop Tendrils of Agony. That's the plan. And we're not going to stop playing 0 drops until we get to the exact cards we need. We don't want to commit to a line until we have all the lands in play that we want. And again, all these artifacts, if you read them, they cannot be activated due to Null Rod. So even though we have what looks like an endless amount of mana, we actually can't use any of this. So now we have the 4 lands we want, and here's our Dark Ritual. And now you can see we got to where we wanted. We played Dark Ritual. We're playing another Dark Ritual. Our opponent decided not to counter Dark Ritual. And here's our 2 Veil of Summers. And we have a green here and another green here. So Veil of Summer can prevent our stuff from being countered if need be. But our opponent decided not to fight over Dark Ritual. So that's good. We have 31 cards left in deck. And now we need to get to Thoughtseize to get to Consigned to Memory out of our opponent's hand. So no Thoughtseize yet. There's another Dark Ritual. We'll just keep playing cards until we get to our Thoughtseize. And there's a Thoughtseize. And now here is the moment. So now we're going to Thoughtseize our opponent, and we have 2 Veil of Summers in hand. And we have 2 green mana open. We have 6 black floating. So this card, again, is just designed to rip Consign to Memory out of the opponent's hand. Let's see what they do. Force of Will. So that's the idea. They're Force of Willing this Thoughtseize because they know they have Consign to Memory to stop Tendrils of Agony. And so this is why we waited to get Veil of Summer. Veil of Summer. So we Veil of Summer their Force of Will, and this will stop Force of Will from countering Thoughtseize. Now they Flusterstorm our Veil of Summer, and that's why we waited to have 2 Veil of Summers. Now we Veil of Summer their Flusterstorm, which will stop Flusterstorm from countering Veil of Summer, which will allow us to make Force of Will fizzle, which will allow us to Thoughtseize our opponent and rip Consign to Memory. And then with 17 Storm and 6 black and Tendrils of Agony in hand, we can easily Tendrils our opponent. So our opponent goes ahead and concedes the game right here. So that's quite the stack that you have. That's probably going to be the thumbnail right there. Absolutely beautiful. All this mana that we have, we can't activate any of this thanks to Null Rod, and our opponent has double Omniscience in hand. All of these counters they played were completely free. But thanks to them allowing us to stick Song of Creation in play, we got to play our entire deck and get to the perfect situation that could play through the counters that we knew they had in their hand. All right, on to game 3. So our opponent destroyed us in game 1. They had the answer 3 times in a row. And then in game 2, we snuck one out by sticking Song of Creation in play when they show and telled us. So let's see what happens in game 3. This is some exciting gameplay. All right, they start off on Island. So that brainstorm was completely nuts. The fact that we got double Lion's Eye Diamond there was so perfect. You know, we kept the hand on the back of Echo of Aeons, and anytime you keep a hand with Echo of Aeons and multiple cantrips, the idea is always to try to find Lion's Eye Diamond. So when you go Brainstorm and rip 2 Lion's Eye Diamonds, that's obviously putting you in a very good place. So the hand plays itself from here. Petal, Dark Ritual, Thoughtseize our opponent, they Force of Will us. And naturally, we're going to go for it here. They have to have double Force of Will if they want to beat us. We're not going to let our opponent untap and turn on cards like Flusterstorm. That would just be brain dead stupid. So here we have all the mana floating. We're all in, and we're going to play Echo of Aeons. Do we lose the game, or do we get to draw 7? They did not have another Force of Will this time. It wasn't like game 1 where they had endless Force of Wills. Here, we see some really good cards. We have Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal, Dark Ritual, Burning Wish. That's enough to win right there. But our opponent also got to draw 7 new cards, and so that could very likely include a Force of Will. So the idea here is we have a lot of mana floating. We left blue mana floating. That way we could use our cantrips if we needed to look at the top of our deck. And that's what we're doing here. We're looking for cards like Veil of Summer, Thoughtseize, Burning Wish, any of these cards that could give us multiple lines. And so what we decide to do here is, I believe, draw the Lotus Petal and leave Burning Wish on top. That way, here's the play. We can go Dark Ritual, Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal, and then go Burning Wish using the Petal and 1 black, and we'll have 4 black floating. That will be enough to go get Tendrils of Agony, and then Tendrils of Agony our opponent for game. But if our opponent counters Burning Wish, we'll still have 4 black floating, and we'll be able to go with this 1 blue Ponder, cracking Lion's Eye Diamond on the stack for 3 red, adding the Burning Wish on top the hand, Burning Wish, and then adding the Tendrils of Agony for our game. So if our opponent forces our first Burning Wish, we can go Brainstorm, Cracking Lion's Eye Diamond in response for Burning Wish for game. So we have 2 different lines. They have to have double Force of Will here. Let's see if they have double Force of Will. So we go Dark Ritual, Petal, Burning Wish. No counter. We get our Tendrils of Agony, and at this point, when they have no untapped blue, we know that they can't consign to memory this. That's game. There's nothing that beats us at this point, unless they're playing Mindbreak Trap, but most blue decks don't play Mindbreak Trap. And that's it. We got away with this one, kind of got away with murder versus show and tell. And this is one of the best matches I've played in a while. You can kind of see some of the really interesting interactions that happen only against show and tell, where you can sneak in cards like Song of Creation and, you know, considering all these different lines and weighing them against what the opponent can potentially have. Really, really fun match. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.